So you have just received your blue belt. Now what? What are the expectations that your coach has? What is your game plan moving forward? Maybe you're still struggling with some of the white belts tapping you. What should you be focusing on? What should a new blue belt put in their forward-looking direction?
What should just keep doing what you were doing. Something got you a blue belt. Something got you from leather belt through that white belt to where your coach was like, man, you're not a white belt anymore. You're a blue belt now. I wouldn't change a dang thing unless, of course, your coach told you maybe you're that guy that used to wrestle and he's like, you need to pull guard more.
Yeah.
Okay, pull guard more. Yes, sir. I'm pulling guard more, right? Like, you do what your coach is telling you to do, but more likely than not, you do what got you white to blue.
Yeah.
And you keep doing it. Yeah, man. What is this?
It's the robot. It thinks that we said its name. Oh. Okay, Yiko, off.
I'm here.
Off. Okay.
You won't be able to hear me anymore.
Fucking robots.
AI.
Oh. Anyway.
Yeah, so with the blue belt too, during your blue belt, right? You're gonna pretty much be exposed to most of what you're gonna know eventually, right? Like here's the thing about it. It's not as though the stuff that I'm good at as a brown belt or a black belt that I didn't know it existed when I was a blue belt. It's not like that. I knew it was there. I wasn't doing it, but I knew of it. And I saw it, and I even, maybe knew of guys that could do it well against me even, but they were still just not things I did yet that now I do all the time, right? So the cool thing about, like, your blue belt is that I feel like, especially nearing the end of it, you're pretty much have seen what you're going to see in jiu-jitsu. You might not, you're not as good at it as you're going to be, by the time you're a black belt or whatnot, but there's not going to be too many things like after that you're like, wow, I've never seen that in my life, right? And this is assuming you're somewhat, more of just a once or twice a week hobbyist.
I think what that leads to is an amazing point that you should pick up on right now is at white belt, your coach had a technique for you to get to positions and out of positions. And if you were struggling with a particular position, he might say, oh, okay, now that you know the trap and roll, that's not working. Okay, let's start working on the knee. Let's actually get to a half guard instead. Now, the higher you get into your jiu-jitsu, that's not going to be the thing. They're not going to give you a new technique in order to get to the next level. They're going to have you refine the techniques that you know to be better at them. So there's not going to be a magic technique that gets you out of any position or to the next position. It's going to be refining the techniques that you already know.
Right.
So if you have a really good Kimura and it works on the white belts, fantastic. You have a great Kimura. Now let's try to make the adjustments to make that same Kimura work on the blue belts. Right. Body shifting, that sort of thing. At white belt, you were looking at the mechanics of how to apply a Kimura, and now we're looking at body position and retention and how to hang on to that thing through transitions,
right,
setups, that sort of thing. So it's no longer about, and there's always going to be techniques that you pick up over the time. There's millions of techniques that you could do, but it's less about learning a new technique and just taking that technique and learning all the aspects about that.
Yeah, it's more like white and a little bit of blue. You find yourself saying, "Oh, I've never seen that move before."
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like after that you'll still find yourself saying similar things, but it won't be that you've never seen the move. It won't be that. It'll be I've never thought to do it like that before, or something like that. Right. To where yes, you'll be making discoveries. Make discoveries, forever with jiu-jitsu. But it won't so much be like a move, right? Like it won't. It'll be more of like a concept, or just a timing thing or a setup or something like that you will have never thought of before, right? But it won't. It's not. There's not going to be too much brand new. The truth about it is like what most black belts were good at as blue belts. they're just really freaking good at it, black belts. They didn't change.
Yeah.
They didn't do a big drastic change, man. And I don't think you should.
Yeah.
I mean, like you say, you're refining at that point. If I look at some of my students that I've gotten to watch, right, be white belts all the way up to black, like what they were doing as blue belts, they're just lights out at now, and every position close to it, like we were talking about in that one podcast, they are now also good at, right? Like it's as if, I feel like the analogy or metaphor, whatever, that I always think of in my head is that they took the ball or the pen, Sharpie, put it on the paper, and just held it there and watched that ink blot slowly spread.
Yeah.
And if you do that for a decade, in that same spot, it spreads out to all the other spots. And you may have started out being a blue belt guy that just hunted guillotines.
Yeah.
That's all you did as a blue belt, right? And now, because of that front headlock focus, you're good at crucifixes, back takes, guillotines, everything that goes with it and around it, right? That's what you do. You just refine. But not much brand new. Not a lot of like technique discoveries as much as they're technical discoveries, you know, slightly different.
At blue belt, I think there's a bigger expectation of being a little more well-rounded than you were at white belt. So
Always,
you should know a submission from just about every position. You should know an escape or a pass from just about every position. And if you got your blue belt, you probably do. But I found it good practice for me to just go through every position, right? Just grab a partner and be like, okay, I'm in mount. What's my go-to from here? Oh, I'm mounted. What's my go-to escape? And whatever pops into your brain, that's what you're gravitating to anyway. So dive down the rabbit holes on those things that you're already doing. If you love a trap and roll, okay, there's certain things that make a trap and roll very difficult to get. How can you exploit those aspects in order to make it work? Yeah.
And you'll do that naturally.
Yeah.
You'll do that naturally. Unless you have a coach that's like forcing you to no, stop doing that and do something totally different. Unless you have that, you're going to naturally refine these moves. You will. I don't see too many people, you know, doing a trap and roll the same way on their day one as they are, you know, purple belt, brown belt, black belt. You've refined it, you know, all that. Yeah.
The term jiu-jitsu game gets brought up a lot. And a lot of times it's not until the higher levels that they say you should be developing a game. At white belt, it's like skill or technique acquisition. We're gathering the techniques. At blue belt, you're starting to refine the techniques that you have already learned, adding ones here and there. And then how much of a game, quote unquote game, do you think a blue belt should have?
Well, I think you always have a game. I think maybe it's a semantics thing or something, but I think to me, a game is just whatever you are now. Yeah. Like well, your game might change. My game changed. I went from a pressure passing, only double leg, don't want to be on my back. If I'm on my back, something went wrong in that match. Kind of a guy, you know, that's pure smash, pure drive through you. And I pretty much flipped it 180 degrees, man. Like, I still could do that. I still got that. You'll never not have what you started with, right? But now I pull guard, you know, I keep distance, I pass on my feet, way less pressure passing unless it's needed, right? So your game will change, but it's not as though that I didn't have a game as a white belt. I just told you my game as a white belt. My game was pressure. So I think you always have a game. Your game is just how you fight. Right. Your game is your style. Yeah. What's your style? Are you aggressive? Are you counter fighter? Yeah. I think whether you're a white belt or even a leather belt, even leather belts have games. Yeah. Yeah, you have a tendency, a way you fight.
Your go-to.
Yeah. Everybody's got a game, and your game will likely change, you know. But if it does, it doesn't have to. Like I was saying, you can stay and just refine, get really good at it. Or you can decide, like I decided at purple belt that I was no longer impressed with my jiu-jitsu. My own jiu-jitsu stopped impressing me. I remember watching a match I had at a tournament that I won and that I was literally just like, I'm not even going to post this. This is gross. Yeah. Like, yeah, I won, but man, that didn't look cool. Right. And then you pop in a Rafa Mendez video highlight, and I'm watching him tap dance over guys passing their guard, and I'm like, I got to get good at that at all costs. Like, I want to get back to being impressed by my own jiu-jitsu, right? So that's when I chose to switch my game up, which was risky because guess what didn't work at all when I first started it as a purple belt. that passing. Like, I had to get good at it. I had to go back through those learning curves of sucking at something.
The plateaus
Right?
that we were talking about is exactly that, right? You're adding a new technique or a new system to your game. Of course your game isn't going to be as good as it was, and you're going to be plummeting for a while, and then once you get proficient, it
goes back
elevates
up.
way past where it was because now you have a new skill set.
Exactly.
Now, if you built a new A game, now you have an A and a B game.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Totally.
But I think the blue belt blues, right? That's how can we make a blue belt video without talking about the blue belt blues? I believe the blue belt blues is you've gotten to a level, you were handed a trophy, you were handed a belt for getting to your blue belt, and there's no longer a new move that is awesome waiting in the wings, right? It's that grind. It's getting the moves that you have proficient.
Refined.
And that's not as fun as being like, hey, here's this new move, check this out. Or
Yeah.
here's this new submission. And also, you might be getting tapped by white belts. Maybe a bigger white belt, maybe, whatever the case may be. Maybe a smaller white belt that's better than you. Hasn't got their belt yet. But it's fine. Like, just accept it. Having a blue belt doesn't mean you can't lose to white belts anymore. Especially if you're trying and working through things. Because there's positions that I've done. Man, I've gotten smashed by people who are way less ranked, but I'm like determined to get this one move to work.
Right.
And like,
working on something.
yeah, you're working on it to a point of like, how far can I go with this before I get caught? And of course you're going to get caught if you're playing with that line.
Of course.
Yeah. And so if you're playing with things and you're adding techniques to your game or you're trying to refine, counters or sweeps, and you're going to get caught. It just is what it is, and that's perfectly fine. Think of your game like the stock market. Over the last 130 years, it's gone up reliably. But there's crashes. So you might be in one of those crashes, but eventually it's going to come back up and you're going to blast through that ceiling. And it'll always continually go up as long as you keep training. So if you're a blue belt, don't quit. Keep going.
Well, I think blue belt blues is also like, you think about how long it takes, right? It takes 1.5 years, 2 years, depends what gym you're at, blah, blah, right? But either way, it takes some time. And I think, there's something to like a race that has legs to it, right? Where, you get through a certain leg of a race, and sometimes you got to kind of talk yourself into, even doing the next leg, right? Maybe it might not just be frustration with techniques. It could be your body. Like, imagine like after your first 1.5 years of jiu-jitsu, you're discovering injuries you didn't know were possible to have, maybe, right? You're like, my hip flexor, right? You're like, I can't like lift my leg up, man. It's like, it kills me. So I think a lot of the time it's that too, right? I recently had a blue belt stop training, and I think it was injuries. Yeah, and I say I think because, sometimes they don't always want to tell you fully. It's just, they want, I'll be back. It's a break. I'll be back, or whatever. But, I've heard that a lot, and then not seeing people come back too. And you look at why, and I think with, injuries can push you out. You might start to do that math that people do, right? Where they're like, okay, I'm feeling really beat up. I've only been training for 1.5 years, just got my blue belt. How much can I sustain this, right? Like, and I think when that happens, you just gotta make some decisions about your training.
Yeah.
About how hard you're gonna train, how many times a week you're gonna train, who you're gonna train with. Maybe you spent your first 1.5 years not willing to tell that one guy no when he asks you to roll, and you're now deciding like, look, I'm either gonna not train anymore, or I'm going to start telling that guy no.
Right.
Right? Like, stuff like that. You might have to start doing that stuff just to keep yourself training. Because I do think that's a big factor with the blue belt blues thing.
Yeah.
Your body starts to get beat up.
Yeah. Knowing your body and exactly what you said, there are certain people that, for whatever reason, you're more prone to get injured with, and you don't have to roll with everyone. It's great to experience different body types and everything, but if there's one particular person, just don't roll with that. I remember I was a white belt, and I was drilling with a brown belt, and he wasn't doing the move. And I would do my reps, and then he would do whatever he wanted for his reps. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like this is like we're in the fundamentals class. We're in the basic white belts class.
Yeah.
And you're doing some crazy thing on me. Can we just like stick to what's going on? And he's like, oh yeah. And then with one of them, I don't know what this guy's problem was. We were doing a choke, and I had the choke in, and I'm squeezing, and he's not tapping. I'm like, well, this is something I'm doing, so I continue to squeeze. And then he turns around and goes, you almost put me out. I was like, well, what are you talking about?
Where you guys were drilling?
Yeah. What? And I was like, what is going on? And
was it your first rep?
No.
Okay.
We had done a few, and then he just chooses not to tap for, I don't know.
That's weird.
It was super weird. And then I'm like, can we just do what we're supposed to do? You didn't tap. And I'm like starting to get a little irritated at this point. And like he walks off, and then after he leaves, like the group of people that were around me, colored belts, everything, look at me and go, yeah, he does that to everybody. And it's like, why is he still here? Like, what? Like, how did he get his brown belt? How did somebody like this? Because it wasn't just that. Everyone had an issue at the gym with this person. I don't remember his name or anything. But, yeah, it was the weirdest thing because I had been doing jiu-jitsu for like 6 weeks at that point. And this guy's a brown belt. And, like, just no etiquette for the class, for what was being taught. And so you're going to have sometimes a high-level person that's just an asshole.
Right.
Who does his own thing.
I mean, it's a freaking a jiu-jitsu gym is like about as melting pot as it gets. I mean, you'll have everybody from rich people to poor people to criminals to cops to in the same class.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I remember having a guy that I knew for a fact was a cannabis grower rolling with the DEA agents. How freaking ironic is that?
Yeah.
Right? And I remember looking, going, ha, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Right? Like, it's just...
That's also what makes jiu-jitsu amazing.
It is.
There's very few places in society that you can go and literally, no matter what ethnicity or
melting pot
standing in life you have, how much money you have in the bank, it doesn't really matter.
No.
On the jiu-jitsu mats, it's everybody.
But what that also that does, it guarantees you're gonna not like some of those people.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm sorry, but and you could be really have great social skills, you know, be able to bend to different personalities and whatnot. Doesn't mean you're gonna love them all, right? Like, there's gonna be people that you're like, oh God, this guy always wants to talk politics, or or this guy, oh man, this guy smells terrible, right, or whatever. There's gonna be like things that bug you so much, and some of those things are not things to be taken lightly. Like, some of them might be so important that you've got to, tell this guy, I'm not gonna train with you, right? I'm gonna take some time, whatever. Yeah. I think I know that guy.
Do you?
Yeah.
Go say hey. I'll pause it.
I'm trying to think of his name. Hold on, because I'm just gonna butcher it. No, that's not Timothy. Did he have a black belt shirt on?
I don't think so.
Man.
I didn't see.
I thought his shirt had like a jiu-jitsu logo. No, but anyway, those people might make you want to quit. Like, or like maybe a scenario where you constantly get partnered up with a guy. Like, if your coach partners people up, you and you, you like, tell your coach, man, I say anybody but him, or whatever. Like just don't be afraid to like try to customize your training a little bit if it's going to keep you from quitting. Those blue belt blues are bad, right? And if you feel like you got to just put your foot down and make some certain decisions about certain people, whatever, like, I'm not training that class no more, that guy's always there, whatever. And hey, and even if it comes down to like, I got to go to a different gym, I wouldn't ever want to see my people leave at blue belts and go to a different gym, right? That stings to see. But like, if I'm putting my gym owner hat aside and just putting on like my jiu-jitsu training partner hat, I'll tell a guy, switch gyms.
Yeah.
I mean, the days of calling you a créanche and saying that you shouldn't, you're unloyal for doing that. Long gone, man.
It is, yeah.
Long gone, man. Go find a gym that you fit with. Don't quit jiu-jitsu, though. Don't think it's jiu-jitsu's fault. It's not.
Give your instructor a chance, right? So don't
Right.
just like disappear, because then the problem will never be resolved. He'll be partnered up with the next person, and that next person might leave because of the same reason. So let your coach know, because it might be, okay, the guy's got a smelly gi. Well, maybe it's an old gi and it's just always
Might be an easy
smelly.
fix.
Exactly.
Might be an easy fix.
It might be the coach just going, here's a new gi, buddy, throw that one away.
Right.
Make sure you're washing
Or
it.
just telling them.
And then good.
Bro,
Yeah.
you own a gym for enough years, you're going to have to tell a few people to wash their gis. I have.
Yeah.
I better tell a guy, buddy, come on, man, wash your gi. And they do. Oh, sorry. You know, they just get used to their own smells so much they don't notice.
With
Whatever.
that, wash your belts. It does not hold secret powers.
Yeah, just don't dry them. If you dry them, you won't have any techniques. You'll be stupid next day. No, I say don't dry because it shrinks. You don't want your belt to shrink. But yeah, wash your belt, bro.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy that people don't. Because it came from like, oh, wear it until it turns black. But they don't turn black. They turn
Is that
white.
where it came from?
Yeah. They turn white and then they turn dingy.
Well, if imagine you've never not washed a white belt forever, I bet you it does turn pretty dark. Oh gosh.